Good afternoon. My name is Cherie Travis. Is that where the camera is right there?
Yes.
Perfect. I teach animal law at the DePaul College of Law, and I'm very, very excited to have the opportunity to welcome our guest speaker today. Christopher Aldrich is a fascinating and has a lot to talk about. By way of introduction, Chris is a special agent in charge of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Office of Law Enforcement in the Midwest and Mountain Regions, and overseeing law enforcement activities across 16 states. With over 34 years of experience in law enforcement, Chris has led high-profile investigations and operations, numerous for years. He's got lots of great stories for us. As the resident agent in charge in Ann Arbor, Chris supervised special agents and wildlife inspectors in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, leading critical wildlife trafficking investigations and managing international border court inspections. A major investigation, undercover investigation into illegal commercial fishing in the Great Lakes Basin led by Chris resulted in 26 convictions and $3.9 million in restitution. Chris also serves as a reserve special agent for the Coast Guard Investigative Service and has held roles as an active duty special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, a security police officer for the Air Force, and a Michigan Sheriff's Deputy. So I'm very excited to welcome Chris, and I'm sure you'll have lots of questions that you can submit, and we'll jump into the discussion. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So as mentioned, my name is Chris Aldrich. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to talk with everyone. It's my privilege. I love it. I love these type of engagements that I can work with public and others to kind of get out a little bit what we do in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Law Enforcement. And I'll do just a little bit, just to, she did showing a little bit about me. I'm a visual person, so I apologize. I kind of have pictures up, several pictures of kind of where I came from, who I am, a little bit to give a little basis. And then we'll work into a little bit what Office of Law Enforcement does in the Fish and Wildlife Service, the different types of law enforcement officers. And then we'll kind of go right into some of the cases that we do, some of the small cases that we can show that we kind of normally do. And then some of the really big covert cases that we work into. We kind of get into the nuts and bolts of those, and then probably save the last half an hour, hopefully, for discussion about anything that we want to talk about. So like she mentioned, started my career back in 1990 in the Air Force as a straight force, police security force. So I wanted to be in law enforcement and the military maybe, and I've always loved nature. So initially it's like, hey, the Air Force is a great thing to come right out of school. I can get training and get on the career path that I'd like to get onto right away, immediately. And so that gave me the opportunity to do that and go to many different bases throughout the country and in Korea as well, deployments, all sorts of fun stuff. So this started my law enforcement career back in 1990. And then so for 4 years, that's exactly what I did. We did security for everything. We did law enforcement for the base. So we would do arrests, citations on base, those kind of things to get my base law enforcement experience. And then, Mother Nature sometimes throws you a curveball. So I was kind of misdiagnosed for a couple of years in the early 1990s, and then finally diagnosed with cancer. I had stage 4 Hodgkin's cancer. They thought it was something physically because I'm athletic. So I had to kind of get out of the military and kind of recover from that, right? So I had 2 bouts of that, a bone marrow transplant, and here I am. So keep fighting, right? So that kind of led, I wasn't expecting that curveball. So while I was out, I started my 2-year degree, 2-year track program in law enforcement. So do all the regular college fun things that you do. And then on top of that, do the firearms training, defensive tactics, and all that stuff. So that then I could eventually get certified, take the Michigan Coalition of Law Enforcement Standards and become a deputy, right? Or state police. So I did that while I was recovering. Through the time, was able to become a sheriff deputy in Michigan for several years. And then 9/11 happened. So I'm a big patriotic person. In general, that happened, that really, hit close to the heart. So I wanted to go back in the military and create, and also finish my 4-year degree, right, in criminal justice. So kind of do both things. The only problem was I had to kind of fight, because if you have cancer, you got to wait 5 years before you can try to get back in the military. Then you have to prove that you're healthy enough and physically fit enough, mentally fit, be able to get back in. So that was like a 6-month process, did that, fight my way back in to get into and get back in as a security force police officer. That allowed me to get my degree while I was deployed. Even my next 2 years, I had to go through University of Maryland and other places because of being deployed so much. I couldn't go to the last 2 years to traditional college like I maybe would have normally. But I did do that and finally did it. That's why the hat there, finally did this, right? Which then gave me the ability to put in for and then get selected for special agent in the Air Force. With the degree, with all my background at that time, it allowed me to get into that career field, which was great training, the best training I've ever received in my life through the Air Force. From cybersecurity to the drug criminal stuff, the detective, all the detective work, I learned the foundation as a special agent in OSI. Which then led me, fortunately, to where I am today as a special agent. Dream job at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Law Enforcement. I always loved nature, I always want to preserve it, and this is no better way to do that than to get the dream job of my life. To give some context, there's like 26 jobs at the time for 3,000 applicants. So it's a process. You have to have a really good background to get into it because it's so sought after. HSI has 300 agents in Detroit alone for their special agents. We have 200 and some nationwide. So worldwide, really, because we're in attachés and everything as well. A few years later, the Coast Guard kind of sought me out because they found out my information, my background in the Air Force. And as a reserve, they're like, hey, you can do 10 more years here and you'll have another career, right? You'll have another retirement when you retire. And they suckered me back in, right? Which is fine. I mean, this was really good. It allowed me to do as a reserve agent in the Coast Guard, which I still am now. I'll probably until December 1. And then I'm going to retire from the Coast Guard side of things with like 21 or 22 years in with that. But that allowed me to kind of get that experience as well. That leads us into kind of like, what's the OLE mission, right? The Office of Law Enforcement mission, right? We investigate crimes involving wildlife crimes, U.S., foreign, tribal, state. That's what we do. We investigate the most egregious. So this wouldn't typically, we're not into writing regular tickets typically, although we could at duck stuff and everything else. We're looking at long-term investigations. We're trying to find criminal enterprises that are exploiting wildlife and then investigate them and hopefully prosecute them to the fullest extent of law. We also have part of our group that does wildlife inspection. So they're uniformed. I'll get into that in a little bit here in a second, but they're more at the ports and borders. We facilitate the legal trade of numerous wildlife products coming in and out of the country. And we make sure that we interdict the ones that are illegal, import, exports, and our wildlife inspectors lead the front of that. So our priorities. I'm going to read this. I usually don't read the screen verbatim, but I will a little bit on this one because it's so important. So we break up international domestic smuggling rings. That's our focus as a special agent and as an OLE organization. The target imperiled species. Now this often includes crime conveyance, which involves transnational organized crime. So which deals with money laundering, cartels, criminal organizations in China, wherever else in the Middle East, wherever, human trafficking, weapons, money laundering, etc. We also want to prevent the unlawful commercial exploitation of protected U.S. species, right? So that often includes the critical industries such as the timber industry and the commercial fishing industry, East Coast, West Coast, Great Lakes. Also includes other things like the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and Endangered Species Act. We work all the time with state, federal, criminal, international counterparts, tribal counterparts as force multiplier. Because as I mentioned before, there's only 200 of us, 200 and some of us across the whole entire country and in attachés overseas. If we didn't have our state and local counterparts, we wouldn't be able to simply do what we do. And then we've got the wildlife inspections that we inspect the shipments coming in and out of the country, import exports. We're heavily involved with making sure the legal trade's there. And then we catch the stuff where people are trying to smuggle in, unfortunately, all sorts of critters across the spectrum, across the world. So our laws and treaties that we kind of cover here. Here's most of them, not all of them. Some of the normal ones that we do, the Bald and Gold Eagle Protection Act, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, also EPA and NOAA also were involved with that as well. Endangered Species Act, and then several other ones you mentioned here too. The primary bread and butter of what we do is the Lacey Act. So that's our bread and butter statute. It's the oldest wildlife law, that federal wildlife law that's on the books. It also gives me my authority to carry the gun, you know, my authority to make arrests and get subpoenas, search warrants, and everything else comes from the WASIC. Now, the WASIC Act is a two-step act. So a lot of times we have federal prosecutors that we have to kind of get in and board because they're not used to what that is and what it entails. You basically have any type of wildlife crime, whether it's state, tribal, federal, international, and then you have something done with the product afterwards. You need the two steps, the law violation, then you need the actual interstate commerce, international commerce, import, export of that species, of that critter, let's say. And if it's $350 or more with knowledge, it's a felony basis. If it's under $350 or should have known knowledge, well, then that's a misdemeanor. And then we also have the ability to write violation notices, which I'll kind of show as well as part of our gamut of what we do. It's not like we're trying to overcharge anyone. It's all applicable. So if we can write a violation notice and someone pays a few $1,000s and that works, great. But we have a lot of people that we have to work really long-term investigations because the $2,000 isn't going to deter what they're doing. I don't know if I've mentioned it here, but I think it's been mentioned before, but you know, wildlife trafficking is the third, you know, most money-making thing illicit in the world, and guns and drugs, sometimes tied with number two, with guns. So human smuggling, that means it's more than that. It is worth a ridiculous amount, and you'll see why in one of the investigations I had to highlight to show you the amount of money something's worth, more than any drug on the planet. So the types of officers we have, right? So within the Office of Law Enforcement, we have special agents and inspectors. There's also refuge officers that are part of the Fish and Wildlife Service, but they don't fall underneath the Office of Law Enforcement, strangely enough. They fall under the Refuge Management Program. So for us, I'll be talking a little bit about the inspectors and then about the special agents and the cases we do. And my one picture, you know, just happened to be on a refuge, a marijuana grow. Myself and my partner just happened to be in the area identifying what was going on when the person came to water the plants. It was one of those times where you just had to be in the right spot at the right time. And then we've got down below the wildlife inspector with one of our falconry issues. And then one of the border port inspections kind of we do at the border, joint force with inspectors and agents, kind of one of the pictures that was at as well. A quick map of general locations. Quick map of general locations of where our duty locations are basically at across the country. Now this changes depending on personnel and money, and if someone retires and you can't fill a spot. So this is pretty current as much as it can be. Wildlife inspector locations throughout. Now they're kept at I kind of forgot to mention, I said it before, right around plus or minus 200. Typically we could have 240 agents. I know that sounds like not very many, and it isn't. But we usually hover right around 200 agents. Here's the different wildlife inspector duty locations we've got, and they're usually at the border and port, or like at an airport, or a big airport that brings in a lot of stuff. A lot of import export stuff goes through, so we have personnel there that are taking care of that. A little shout out to our forensic laboratory in Ashland, Oregon. It is, I'm a little biased, but it is the world's best lab that there is. You know, they're the most accredited lab in the world for wildlife lab. So they, you know, for our morphology, our necropsy, our genetics, we send everything there if we need to cause a death, if we need to know genetics, DNA, get half breeds, hybrids. So they're the ones that really help us with some of the elements of our crime to prove what we need to prove, like how something was killed, and where it's from, right? A little bit more about our wildlife inspectors. So their uniform, they're at the ports of station, like mentioned before, at the border crossings, and they're like our front line. So they're there to kind of to help with the legal trade. That's like a big part of their job, is to make sure everyone's got their permits, the right species and the right critters are going to the right place, that nobody's trying to smuggle anything. And they usually work with our CBP officers and find all sorts of stuff. They're finding probably 100 things today across the country that are coming in incorrectly, right? Where do they do it? You know, like I mentioned before, land, airports, seaports. And that's a crazy, it's just daunting to believe how many shipments come in on these cargo shipments. I mean, hundreds of thousands of things across the country, and there's 100 and some inspectors. So they're literally getting probably 0.05% of being able to inspect some of that cargo shipment stuff. And then if you get it and take it out, we've had shark fin where we've taken out and we're like, oh, these are all bad shark fin stuff. Well, now we got to refrigerate it and take care of it until the conclusion of the investigation at our cost. And so that could be millions of dollars. Like that's not budgeted in. It's just like, oh, now we got to deal with this, whatever product it is. And we slow down all the communication, and the ports are like, it's like an air traffic control. It's just going. And if we stop that, it's like, there's a lot of problems. So a lot of it goes undetected, really. They look at personal bags, right? They're looking for live wildlife, which happens all the time. Wildlife happens, the live wildlife is crazy. People's bags, people's pockets, you know, people's luggage, people's under their clothes. I mean, you name it, they're hiding it. And so it's very, very strange, you know, what kind of stuff. This is only a few things, but the exotic pet trade is insane. Billions of dollars a year throughout the world, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars all the time throughout the United States. Stuff comes in, you know, China, let's say, or some other country wants what we have, so they take it and it goes out. Well, some of our people want what China has, and China will get it and ship it in. And then it's just this trade is insane, happens every day. And the methods that they use in humane, you know, how they transport it, how they take care of these critters is crazy sick. Usually a lot of them die. If there's a shipment of 100 animals coming in, maybe 50 of them are alive. The other 25 may be sick. So they get 25, they get to sell. Zoos and the food industry as well. A couple quick slides of these are a little dated pictures, but they show kind of what some of the inspectors face on a regular basis. All those boxes down below, that might be one shipment. So like 3 inspectors have to go through all those boxes and through the manifest and try to find out what critters are what and identify the legal ones and not legal ones. And you're talking about things like sea cucumber. You could have legal sea cucumber. You do have legal sea cucumber, but you also have illegal sea cucumber. So they've got to go through and identify which ones are legal and illegal and through maybe 100 boxes, right? Or you get a whole bunch of birds or lizards or something else coming in. 95% of them are good, but 3 of them are endangered. So you got to look through that. Look through humane, you know, if they're shipped humane, live tigers coming in and crazy stuff, which you can't do. Well, they'll still try to bring them in. Some of the couple pictures of people how they try to hide things. You know, you think it's humane to coil up a snake like that in this little bag and stuff it inside of a gym bag or inside your pants, or they've got these little false cans on the bottom. They'll stick snakes in there. Some of them are poisonous. And surprise, you know, when the inspector pops it open and there's a venomous snake, let's say, they'll wrap them up inside their sleeves. I've seen people tape baby turtles to their groin and to their underarm and get on an airplane because they're worth like $200,000. Just the turtles on them were worth $200,000. So this is, you know, this is going on every day in every port all across the country. And overseas, they don't have people like us in most places. So this is just happening everywhere overseas in crazy amounts without being even checked. Real quick, some of the other things that we do for Office of Law Enforcement. We've got a digital forensic group that kind of handles all our computers and our cybercrime stuff. We've got a special operation division that works with our international operations division. And so they kind of take the football from what we do on these big investigations to tie it into like Thailand or Vietnam and try to work with their FAs. Because we have some people over there at these different FAs, they're special agents. And we'll try to work the full picture from US to there or there to here and back as a team. Our Wildlife Intelligence Unit is awesome. They help us with targeting packages. They put together, like here's all the bad guys that are working. Here's how they're connected, their businesses. Here's the shell companies they're working. You know, they'll put all these together for us to work some of these bigger programs. Our training and development unit, obviously training us as new agents and keeping us trained every year. We have to do yearly in-service to keep our training up and get legal updates and everything else that we have to train our agents on. And then the PRU is basically the people that would investigate us if we're doing something wrong, right? So we've got a crew of people to make sure that we're upheld to the highest standards that we need to be, especially with taking tax dollar monies to go protect wildlife across the world here. So other quick advantages as a sign hurricane, you know, everyone's heard about these things that come in, they devastate an area. Like we have our response units. I've been fortunate enough to be on 3 of them and lead 3 of them down to Florida, Texas, and North Carolina. So we help protect the firefighters and the medical equipment and everything else from getting stolen while they're trying to save lives from these flooded out houses and everything else. So that's some of the things we do. Some of these other pictures kind of show some endangered species stuff we kind of deal with. The migratory bird, there's a migratory bird trap, a lake hole trap up there. Piping plovers, they're critically endangered in the Great Lakes. The Indiana brown bat, and of course the windmill stuff. If people are permitted, that's good. But there's a lot of places that aren't permitted, and they take a lot of stuff. And their biologists are like, "Don't put them here," and they put them there. And then you get a lot of eagles getting killed or bats getting killed. Fun fact I didn't know until I came in the service that bats like the brown bat and stuff. You're like, well, how do they get hit with a propeller? They can catch insects in the middle of the air. Well, during migration, they turn off their radar, and they follow. They just go, and so they'll just go. And if it's going through a windmill area, they'll just get mowed down. A lot of them will get killed. Some of them get, but then you've got eagles and everything else get hit by it. So you just got to mitigate that with our biologists, and most places can work with them. And they'll for the bat thing, there's a certain time where they migrate. Well, if you turn down the speeds of the windmill during that time frame, you take significantly less bats. So if they do that, everything's good, right? You have wind power, and we're not killing as many bats, so we're good. Places that don't do that because they lose money, then we get involved and try to hold them accountable, hopefully, right? That leads us to the special agents, right? What do I do? So, and I'm a picture guy, so that's why there's a lot of pictures here. I tried to send Brett the presentation early, and it was like 1 megabyte too big to send over the email because of me adding all these pictures to it. So, we're plain clothes. We're basically detectives. We're the same as like CIA or ATF or BIA for Bureau of Indian Affairs or anyone else that's federally law enforcement, nationwide, right? Authority anywhere. But our primary focus is wildlife, which often, again, goes into human smuggling, drug trafficking, weapons. I mean, I can't tell you how many things I've seen and worked that we get involved with all these other crimes because of the criminals are doing not just one thing wrong, they're doing 20 things wrong, or 10 things, or 3 things. So how do we do this? Well, just like anything else, we receive information from a lot of people, public sources, other agents, other agencies, state, federal, local agencies, the public, zoos, you name it. We get from even pet trade people that want to do it right. We'll tell on the other pet trade people that aren't doing it right. Or sometimes it's just a really bad guy that wants to get rid of their competitor. So they'll call us and try to get rid of their competitor, and then we'll get them both. So they can do that. Then we take that information, we run an investigation. So that process information is basically like we run an investigation on some of these bigger ones. It could be 2-3 years. On some of the smaller ones, it might be 3 months, 6 months, or 1 month. It might be something pretty simple. Gather information. We might do warrants. We might do Facebook searches for warrants on that. We put together, the greatest package we can on documenting whether the crime happened or didn't happen, because all we are is fact finders, right? We're trying to prove or disprove the crime. And then we present that to the U.S. Attorney's offices. Now, if it's a bigger case or the medium cases, we immediately bring them on board before we're starting this investigation. Why do we do that? Well, it's because I've been halfway through investigations and thought I was doing a damn good job. And then there's a couple elements that they would have wanted me to get, and I could have got if I was communicating with them. So lessons learned, they're like, oh yeah, I could have got that in a 2-minute conversation with the bad guy. And now it's too late. I don't have that access, right? So we learn, and then we bring them in often and throughout, so that when we spend all that time, we get a good prosecution hopefully. And we don't go to the end and go, oh, I could have done this, and I should have just talked to the U.S. attorney, right? And that's like, to give an example, I'll show it later too, but there's a picture of me doing one of the commercial fish buys with one of the subjects involved in there. It kind of looked like a fake video when we were doing it because it was just like perfect. Except for my counterpart had a watch camera. And so his watch camera, he was like, you can't be like this while you're like talking to the guy. So he's like doing this and talking, right? And so if you're watching the video, if you're an attorney, you're gonna like throw up. You're all over the place. It's like a snapshot picture of where he had the money and handing it to, I'm handing him, he's counting it. It looks fake, but it was, it's real. And he had no idea what we were doing, fortunately. Okay, and so here's a quick example of a standard investigation. These happen all the time throughout the country. So you got this guy that goes overseas. He wants to hunt this leopard. He kills this leopard. He doesn't have the proper permits to kill the leopard, or he does, or bring it back to the United States. So then he just simply says, I'm going to go to this country over here, this area, where I could hunt it and get things legally. I'll fill out all the permits and fill out everything from that country, like I hunted it there. So he can bring it back and hang on his wall. Like I'm a big bad hunter, I killed this leopard, which someone pointed at and said shoot. And this stuff is just kind of gross how these people do these things. But in this case, he claims to have it here, fills out false paperwork. I mentioned before, I don't know if I meant the Lacey Act is false labeling. So also so if anyone anywhere falsifies wildlife in any shape or form, so if they do that in a permit, on a napkin, on anything, and then that wildlife is transported interstate commerce or imported, that itself is a separate offense. It's a false labeling offense. And if it's over $350, it's a felony. They're like the easiest things to prove once you can get in with people, especially if you can do undercover work, because people will falsify everything. They'll falsify anything they can to make it look legal, in this case, until they get it. And then you have them. Like, so this person had a law that he violated internationally. One step of Lacey Act. He also falsified documents. There's another separate crime. He also then he imported this thing into the United States, which completed the two-step process of the Lacey Act. So in this case, a simple case, straightforward, interview him, eventually get the confession, pays $10,000 in fine, and has 3-year term of probation. So this, if you're rich, this $10,000 is not going to probably deter this guy for his whole life. He's got a misdemeanor crime. So, but if you're talking about transnational wildlife criminals, like cartel members, $10,000 is nothing. That's like $1. That's probably like a penny to me. I mean, it's not even $1. So this wouldn't be justified sentencing for someone like that. But in this individual, hopefully $10,000 felt it. Now he probably paid 20 grand to go hunt this thing. And to get it back and mount it, it's probably another 5 to 10 grand. So I don't know if 10 grand's enough there or not, but we don't always get to set that, right? So you go to court thinking, hey, this is a great thing. And sometimes we just get probation. It's just how it goes. And learned early on in my career, I got to get past that because it was very tough to say, oh, this person pled to a felony and they just get probation. Like, yeah, it's a wildlife crime. People don't, these are victimless, these aren't people. And so a lot of times they get a lot less, sentencing, which doesn't mean I'm still not going to document it and take care of what I can, right? Here's one of the cases I did, a real standard, small case. So walleye fishing in Canada is really big. So it's a huge part of their industry. I've been up there to fish, with my family before, and you can take like so many walleye a day and eat some, and you can bring very few back. There's laws very strict on it. But there's people that will exploit that. So these 2 individuals go up there and they bring back 84 extra walleye than they're supposed to have, right? These are just 2 guys and 9 northern pike. Doesn't seem like much, but when thousands of people do this and no one gets held accountable, those lakes get fished out. They simply just get fished out. I've seen it happen. So at least this guy, they played, as soon as I went to interview them, they were like, okay, that's what I did. Here's why we did it. So they confessed. And it's the first time they've ever been in trouble. So here's where the violation notice comes in. The cool part about us is same crime, that's a felony what they committed, that's a felony. They can be charged for a felony. Now, no one's probably going to get convicted of that with a felony, nor should they probably, especially at their level of culpability. However, I've got a wide range of stuff. I can charge them with a felony. We can go that route. If the attorney wants to go that route, we can charge them with a misdemeanor. Or in this case, I can write a violation notice. And they pay it and it's done. It's basically like a civil infraction, but counts as kind of like a misdemeanor on the record. It's always there. And they had to pay, they had to pay $2,700, go through, they had to hire lawyers and, it probably cost them 10 grand each, that's probably worth it for that. So we worked with Canada, their law enforcement officers on this, worked at the border when we caught how they were smuggling this inside the vehicle. And they smuggled the stuff in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. So this was just another example of something small, pretty easy case that we run. But you could do 1,000 of these at a time if we had enough agents. We just don't. So we focus on what? The complex, really big cases. So I'm going to go into 3 of them. I'm going to highlight 3 cases and we can talk about them afterwards a little bit too in the discussion. But this is my baby. This was Operation Fishing for Funds. It was a very complex commercial fishing case that happened in the Great Lakes. So how we get tons of information and intel all the time over the years of legal commercial fishing activity. There's $1 billion industry, right? Billions, $6 billion industry, or whatever it is in the Great Lakes. So again, if a state officer finds them, brings them in and gets, hey, you got 200 extra pounds of fish, it's a violation. It's a state violation code. So they'll get like a $200 fine. That's not going to deter them from doing what they're doing. So I work with the counterparts, work with our people, our state, local, tribal folks, and our intel unit and gathered all this stuff up for years of finding who's doing what, who's been hit before on violations and it doesn't work. So who's violating? How do we get in with them? And you also have to get some luck of like an area or a person that's going to spend the time. So we locate this area where their fishermen have to take their fish a long ways away to sell it. But we find somewhere that's closer. Like if I open a spot here, a business here, this is much closer. And I can document and see what's going on. See, again, prove or disprove what's going on. Is what we think is going on. And we did know that it was. We did a lot of stuff in the background. We knew there's stuff going on. Well, how do we prove the knowledge, right? If we just prove they're over limit today for 200 to this.
No, they'd be made up there. Mine was staying well up here. Yeah.
Okay. That works. If we can, so if I can get a pattern of behavior, well, then I can get a bigger prosecution. If I can just, and otherwise they'll just say, oh, that's just someone did that, someone did that. That's just a small amount of people doing this. So you have to be in the right place with the right personnel, the right group, the right support for the right amount of money. And in this case, we had some extra help from the Great Lakes Fund Initiative in the Great Lakes area for invasive species and so forth to help fund some of this. I was able to dedicate 100% of my time to this. My co-agent, 100% of his time to this. And so we had 2 state detectives in Michigan, 100% of their time to this. And then probably 50% of the time to 10 other agents who had to rotate in to help me at the fish shop. So we locate a spot, we open up a fish shop. The guy that I rented from doesn't know who I am. So we turn an old fish shop into a nice fish shop. And so we start, and I'm the shop owner. Chris, Aldrich. So I'm the shop owner. We've got credentials and backgrounds, for all our stuff for undercover credentials. So including vehicles, everything else. So we look just like anyone else, any other person. So I start this business up. You got to look legit. Everything you see there, we had to get. Other than the fish shop said that before. It had actually was an old fish shop, so that worked really well. I had to get cooler trailers, put our names on it, right? Get a business. A whole bunch of stuff I had to do. And then we had to get trained in being a fish shop manager, right? We had to do this legally and safely. HACCP regulations for handling fish. We've got to do that. So we've got to get educated, trained, and how to handle this fish and then move the fish. So we start buying and selling initially from people, and then you find out, okay, this is true. They're doing this and this and this illegal. Okay, now the 3rd fisherman, they're doing it too. The 4th fisherman, they're doing it too. So then we're like, okay, we might have something here, right? So let's start documenting and befriending wholesalers, because wholesalers are one of the keys too. They're buying fish knowingly. But if you go to them and say, hey, you bought all this fish illegally, their first thing they're going to say to you is what? I don't know where this comes from. Or, hey, it came from illegal sources, all I know. I don't know anything wrong. Well, yeah, until we prove it. Until I go undercover, until I have a camera on me, or until I have audio on me, and I'm bullshitting with them, and they're telling me what they're doing, because I get into the story, and we get befriend them, right? We befriend them and start talking everything, and they could go, no, I don't do that, right? They could do that, they have the opportunity, but they're like telling me how they're doing stuff and how we do things illegally, telling us how to false, label stuff, get around the laws. So we do this for 2+ years. And then, at that time, I've probably dealt with, 6, 7 wholesalers and probably 40 different fishermen. And there are probably hundreds of fishermen. I just don't have, at some point, you got to call it and pull the plug, right? But this is what we got out of this, initially, right? So this from Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, even some of these fishermen, the wholesalers were involved with Estonia businesses. They'd have people fly over here, they'd train them over there and have them over here, exploiting our resources in our Great Lakes and then shipping it back over to Estonia. So this is something massive, right? Every single fisherman that I dealt with in that time frame sold me illegal fish. All of the wholesalers except for one in Chicago. There was one in Chicago, and that place was probably dirty, very smart. That's okay. And was very smart and coy, and so very hard to catch. So that, you know, he just didn't want to bite on the bait, right? Even though we had predisposition, he did illegal stuff in the past. He didn't bite on, you know, hey, there's some sturgeon here I can buy, and didn't buy it. The rest of them, all of them bought it. Bought stuff and sold stuff, and then talked about how they buy and sell stuff all the time illegally. So we document all of that through all that time from now to 2017. And so this is some examples of some of the shipments of fish I would get. I would go pick up these things. We had to get a forklift and go pick up these large amounts of fish. That's one day's catch on Great Lakes of one species, lake trout, which is being exploited. We pay about $20 million a year to help the lake trout in Lake Michigan for invasive species and for overfishing. And so people all the time are like, we don't overfish this fish. Well, yes, we do. And we had to do this investigation to prove it. What it is actually, this is the 2.1s now, there was the 3-point-something million that we have now in restitution that you mentioned before. That part's an old number. So people have been prosecuted since. And so does this an impact? I would say yes. And I'll get to that a little bit later, kind of on an example of that, but this is an impact that hurts. So these wholesalers and everyone that got prosecuted, many of them got prosecuted with felonies. A lot of the actual fishermen got prosecuted, pled down to misdemeanors, but had to pay a ridiculous amount of money. Ridiculous amount of money. And we could have taken their, you know, they could have taken their boats and their nets. You know, Chris Aldrich says, take their boats and their nets, especially someone this egregious. But then they're saying, well, you're taking away their way to, you know, to fish. Now, some of this stuff was very egregious. So like, they, you know, some of them, you know, could just go buy another boat or go get some more nets anyway too. But, so part of this, and this is a good example. So I had probably 30 some different subjects, groups of subjects, two fishermen here, two fishermen there, two fishermen here with a crew, wholesaler group here, wholesaler there. Each one of those could have been in a separate investigation, each one. But we collectively looked at this and looked at it as one investigation, even though we had dozens of subjects. One of the subjects here, this is a good example of undercover work's the only way to get this guy. So we knew for years and years and years from state and tribal, everyone saying this guy is buying fish from a subsistence fisherman, which means they can catch walleye and they can eat them. They can even have the tribe and have their elders eat them, have their tribe eat them. That's nothing to do. What they can't do under a subsistence license is sell them. Can't do that, especially in the quantities, the mass quantities people are selling these walleye, which are sport caught fish in the peninsula. So this guy they could never get into. He's a bar owner and he knows two of the fishermen. They personally do a lot of crime together. So they are a tight-knit group. You're not getting into these people. Unless you have a business and an undercover person that goes in and starts befriending this guy. So it took me 4 months of going to this guy's bar, eating walleye every time I went. And it was really good walleye. Okay, really good walleye. He had a good recipe, but they're all illegal fish. So he's saying all this fish is from Canada. He's buying all this stuff from a Canada source, which is lawful. Again, he's false documenting the fish that he's getting and he's selling them. He's selling them local and to some people out state. Well, I befriend him and I tell him, hey, I'm a fish shop owner, right? I run this route right by your place all the time. And so I just say that. I just say it. And I keep eating his fish and this is wonderful. Where do you get the fish? Oh, Canada, Canada, Canada. After about the 4th time of BSing with this guy and talking with him extensively, buying his fish and eating his fish, he finally is like, well, you know, would you buy some of the fish? I got these guys, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I don't care where they're from, you know, like I don't give a crap, right? So like you have to kind of talk that part, like I don't give a shit, right, about this stuff. I'm just as dirty as they are, right? So yeah, we talk. He's like, yeah, okay, well, I'm not gonna tell you who it is, but I can give you this much walleye, right? And I can give you this much walleye on a regular basis, and you can sell it to Chicago. Everyone's making good money, right? You can do this. Okay, cool, man. I drive right by you anyway. So start buying walleye from this guy. That's like a typical time part what I would get from him. That's probably a few $1,000s worth of fish at least, maybe more on, but definitely more on the play in Chicago value wise. Very sought after, very fresh, very good fish. So we keep doing this for a couple of years. I mean, because it's only in the spring when the walleye were coming in for this one subject, right? So this is like the best example ever I had of an operation. So this is only one group of people within this big case we've got going on. So I've worked with the detectives from the upper Michigan Peninsula Drug Enforcement Team. Also with DEA, ATF, HSI. We had a kind of a tight-knit group up there in the Upper Peninsula. So they helped us on the surveillance. Well, we figured, hey, we did this. Now let's document this from the start to finish. How do we do that? Well, they fish here, they fish in the area we know where they fish in. Let's wait till they put their nets out. We'll go out there afterwards in the middle of the night. We'll pit tag fish. We'll pull up their nets. We pit tag these fish. We'll pit tag the fish. We go and leave. We watch it. We've got surveillance people on the ground. This picture is an actual surveillance from an Army helicopter. So we've got the best surveillance thing I've ever been on in my whole career. You know, probably 20 some people working this surveillance from start to finish. We have trackers for search warrants that we got on their vehicles. We're watching them. Now they go pick up the fish in the middle of the night and they start driving. Well, what are they? And then we're in the middle of the UP. Anyone who hasn't been to the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, it's very, very, very remote. Okay, there's no one out there, especially at 2 in the morning. So they're driving down the road and they're doing all sorts of counter surveillance needs. Well, who does that? Drug criminals and everything else do that. They go to a safe house and they sit there for an hour or two. Then they pull out the back alley and go out and they drive on the road at like 100 miles an hour, then back down to 20 miles an hour. Then 100 miles an hour, back down to 10 miles an hour. If you're following them, you're hacked, right? So you have to have, we had an elaborate group of people with a lot of experience to be able to get around their counter surveillance methods. Plus we had a helicopter with infrared. So we had them. We watched them go do that, go to another house. Then 3 hours later, go drive to, oops, I'll go back. Go drive to this, where this picture's at. That's the bar on the top there. This is their truck backing that trailer up. Then they unattach that trailer. And guess who shows up the next morning to buy fish? Me. So I buy those fish. Next morning, I pull them out of that exact trailer where it was parked the whole night. We had eyes on it. We take all the fish out. That's one of those shaky camera videos I say. That's the kind of one of those deals we did. Then we take those fish because he knows they're going to Chicago. We take them to Chicago. But on the way, we scan them. And what do we find? Our pit tags that were in the net. So we did from start to finish with this whole group. It took that to get this done. And it was amazing. But it shows you the complexity of even just 2 criminals, 3 criminals, and the mastermind behind it, and the two subsistence guys that are making a lot of extra money off the backs of everyone's taxpayer dollars fish that they should be able to go out and get, right? I'll move on to the next one. So this is Operation Roadhouse. This is the exploitation of paddlefish, the American paddlefish. Okay, so people know sturgeon roll. Let's say the same thing with paddlefish. The bigger the roast, the bigger the fish species, the better the caviar. And paddlefish, since unfortunately the sturgeon have been like wiped out in Russia in that area, which is crazy to wipe out sturgeon in that vast of an area, but they did it over there on the caviar market. They come here to exploit our paddlefish and our sturgeon, our lake sturgeon. And we run a lot of cases. We're still doing a lot of things with these type of investigations. This is in the Ohio and the Missouri River Basin. So people will come, and this group of people, they will come through, and there's a lot of them, but a lot of groups of people come through during a certain time of year when the paddlefish have good glow that they can turn into very good caviar and $350 an ounce, or right, they can do this. So they come through and they buy from fishermen that are just out there like hillbilly fishermen. They snag the fish themselves. They buy anything they can buy off of anybody, and they do it all across from like the whole range of the paddlefish. And so whenever they're in season, they're just going right along with the season and the temperatures of the water, and they've got it down to a science. So we know they're doing this. Again, the state officers catch them sometimes. $100 ticket, $500 ticket, $200 ticket. And that doesn't change you when you're making tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars on caviar. It's not going to stop you. If they get caught too, they're also saying, hey, I just eat the stuff. You know, so if they're catching it, they're like, I'm eating it for my family. I don't sell this stuff. Prove it. We got to prove it. How we prove it? We infiltrate them, right? That's our job, right? We infiltrate them, get the knowledge on tape and audio, and then we can do what we need to do. So this joint investigation, again, was with Missouri and us and other people too. We had other agents, other groups with us. Warsaw, Missouri. So for 2 years, we work undercover shop there. We have a business. We have agents that are working there. We have state officers that are working there undercover, and we just look like regular hillbillies in the business I'll show you in a second here. It gave us a significantly broader understanding of what was going on at the state levels across these states. It was crazy how organized this crime is. And it looks like 4 guys fishing. That's what, from the outside, you're like, oh, there's 4 dudes fishing fish. Yeah, but they've got a camp and they're buying fish and they're storing it and they're selling, and they're taking it back and they sell it to Chicago, sell it to New York, sell overseas. There's some big crime here. So there's the shot. We leased this little building on a dock, and the owner doesn't know who we are again. You're just like, hey, I'll make some money. Yeah, we'll rent this much. So we set this up. All those places that you see there are also like, there's spots you can put your boat in, but you'll see all those gentlemen out there, they're snagging fish because the paddlefish are coming through a certain time. So for 2 months, we opened this business up each year for 2 years, and we watch, document, BS, buy, sell, what we can do for those 2 years. And then at the end of it, we take it down. We take all the people down, right? Because these people will come through, and then, so all those people on the dock, those are probably just local fishermen. One of them might be from Estonia or somewhere else, even though he's a US citizen, he's from Montana. He's there for this week, and he's fishing, but also like, hey, I see you caught a female. I'll give you $50 for that roe. I don't care about the roe. I want the fish, right? So that's what happens and what we did for multiple years. The team created a big fish catch board that says, hey, we'll give you some prize stuff, you $5 in, but you got to put your name down, right? And you got to put your stuff down. And, you know, lo and behold, a lot of these people are just, I mean, they want that, you know, prize money. They're going to put down their phone number and their stuff. Thank you. So we had some creative ideas that we did that way. This is something that would happen if you go to this, all 99 places out of the 100 that they're going to do something like this. So it fit in, and we got a lot of information from it, which helped. So the second prong of people, so there were this groups of people that were working together, and they would, I'm telling you, organization, they had down each state what time was the best time to get the road, water temperature wise. So they had 4 people from 4 different families in this group. They looked like 4 fishermen just fishing. They didn't come to the same cabin every year at the same time, roughly, when the water temperatures were right. And they would say their fish, buy stuff through all these people. They would process the roe there and move on to the next state or next spot in the state and do the same thing. They would do this for 2 months straight. And it's all just for personal consumption, right? So how do we get into these guys? Well, you send people like myself and my buddy to go befriend these guys. That's how you send them. So our intel group works really good. Says, hey, these guys are going to be here at this time at this campground. Cool, we'll rent that cabin right next to their cabin. Let us do our work, because there's some of us that really like this stuff and are really good at it, at getting in with people, right? So we go there, we rent this place. They don't have a boat. We bring a boat. We're like, oh, we got these things.
You can use our boat.
They go, we'll take you on our boat, right? So like, how do you do that? Well, we got to strike up a conversation with people and start BSing. So my partner is probably the most incredible undercover agent I've ever met in my life. Comes up with an idea of, let's pull the boat around and in the morning, first thing in the morning, just make, I mean, a ton of noise, right? We're like pounding oars and making all this noise like in this boat. It's like as we're getting it ready, right? So, you know, it works. This guy comes out like this, you know, like, he's like, what are people making noise? And he looks over and he's like, this light bulb, you know, comes on because he sees this boat and he's like, we don't got a boat. And yet these people have a boat. So he could see the motors working, and we start BSing with him. And then he goes, well, hold on, you didn't speak good English. Well, he goes inside and gets the guy that speaks good English. Now he comes out, we befriend him, talk with him. And he's like, you know, if you're out today fishing and you happen to, I don't know, catch a big female, just call me. Here's my phone number. They can't help themselves, right? So he's like falling right into this. And they have, you know, they were predisposed anyway. He was begging for fish, right? So now what do we do? Well, how do you catch illegal fishermen? Big bait. That's how you catch them. And a little bit of luck. So how do we do this? Well, we got a lot of luck on our side. So myself and that other agent there go out on the river, and all day we're trying to catch fish. Now, 50-50, we catch a male, right, a female. And lo and behold, I catch this big gravid female paddlefish. It just was like the stars were all aligning. Everything was like lining up. And I caught this huge paddlefish. Legal, like I'm able to keep one of these and catch one and snag one. But even if I wasn't as an agent, I could catch them illegally if I needed to do so in this case. In this case, I caught it like that. So we called the guy up And he's like, no way, come back here right now, you come back. And I was like, okay, we'll come back soon. So we go back to the cabin and proceed to have a negotiation period with the mastermind of the 4 group. So they had one guy who was like the strong arm guy, one guy who was the caviar guy, one guy who was the English guy, and one guy who was like the mafia leader. He was legit. And I mean, I'll get in that in a second. He was legit. He owned Estonia businesses and he was a bad dude, like really bad dude. But he made the decisions. So they would be like, they're going back and forth. And like, we're like, we don't care. We just want to eat the fish and bring it home. And he's like, but I'm not going to get nothing for the row if you're going to give me the row. And he's like, they finally agreed to like $50, right? So the fish is worth a significantly amount more than $50, right? So it's thousands of dollars when they turn it into row. But we get $50, but we're documenting everything. So all this BSing, all this stuff is all being done. Like, thank you very much. And we get through all their knowledge. They're talking, we're drinking with these guys. And this is a picture of me eating sandwich. You got to eat while you have some fun, right? It's a tough job being out the boat, right? Like I'm working my job. Now these guys behind us are bad dudes though, okay? The guy on the right, the guy that's on my back left side, I guess, would be the strong arm guy. The guy directly behind me was the mastermind guy. So he's the one who calls all the shots. He could tell it. And so that's just one of our day fishing times we had with them that we're taking them out there. Now, this leads to my side notes. This is one of my stories of my life. So I get deployed to the Middle East, in a capacity. I'm in Iraq area, Kuwait. I don't get shot at. I'm in dangerous situations. Don't get me wrong, but I was never shot at. I never had to shoot anyone. But here in this case, on the river in the middle of Missouri, out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, I get shot at. Like at the middle of the night, 2 in the morning, out in nowhere. No one's coming for us. No one knows. They know generally where we're at. They don't know exactly where we're at. And these dudes, so that's not these dudes here. So it's not even these guys. They get these hillbillies on the side of the bank. We're going, I'm driving like I am. Right to my left is my partner. And the one guy, the strong arm guy is not there. Just the guy behind me, he's there. 2 in the morning. So we're going along and there's these 2 hillbillies on the side. I don't know what they're doing. They're drunk. But now they start yelling at us. And they start yelling at us to come over and give them sexual favors. And we're like, we're going to ignore them. I just think they just keep driving, ignore the hillbillies on the side of the road. And they're like, you come over here and do this to us, right? And we're like, they're just going to keep driving down the river, just snagging fish here, just on our own. The 3rd time they said it, and we did not acquiesce to their request. They were slightly upset and did so by firing 3 rounds at us because I could see 3 muzzle flashes directly in my direction, right? So now I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna get my flash, you get your life flash. Mine was like, I'm gonna get killed by hillbillies asking you for sexual favors. Not like a horse situation, right? This is a horse way to die. And so I'm like, okay, so they get in a truck and take off. And so my other buddy's like texting our other guy, undercover phone, like, we just got shot at, And I turned around to make sure the guy behind me is not hit or whatever, right? Just to see if he's okay. And nothing hit our boat, nothing hit us, but it was definitely in our direction, just bad aim. And it was far enough away, probably for a handgun, but probably not effective range. But I turned around and this will stick to me until the day I die. And I'm not exaggerating whatsoever. So I turn around and see if this guy's okay. And this dude is still fishing like this. He stops for a second and does this. He goes, "What is that? Small arms fire." And then he keeps fishing. Didn't look to the bank, didn't duck, didn't like hide. My partner's like curled up beside my leg, trying not to get shot, hide me behind me as a bullet range. And this guy behind me just kept fishing, didn't even said, "Is this small arms fire?" That tells you the kind of person I'm dealing with behind me and what he deals with over in Estonia and Russia and those areas. That small stuff didn't mean anything to him. And so that just gives you some example. You're just like in the spot and then you get this happen to you and you're like, oh, well, we survived that. That's good. And we didn't get in trouble from the guys from Eastern Bloc here. So another us documenting kind of like fish processing. We take the fish back there. They're pulling the roll out. They're telling us how they're doing it and what's good, what time of year is good, how to do it, all this stuff, all the laws they're violating. We're just having a good old time over beer and talking about dirty fish stuff. And they tell us how they subsequently do this across all these states. So this is all recorded, all video stuff. How do you get out of that if you're in, defense? you hope that we do something stupid, right? Like with evidence or something else, but we didn't. And they all had to plead to felonies. Through this whole case, there's like 125 subjects were prosecuted. A lot of them were in state prosecutions. So we do that all the time where we're like, hey, we'll take these guys federally, they're more egregious. And you guys have these state ones that are less egregious, and a $500 or $2,000 fine is enough to hit them with the state stuff. We had assistance from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. They give us fish, female paddlefish that they raised that we could use in the investigation. Plus, they also harvested, amount of, they had processed caviar that they had to that we could also use and sell in undercover capacity. So this type of things don't work without like dozens and dozens of people through multiple agencies working this type of thing for multiple years. All right, I'm just making sure I'm okay here. I'm pretty close here to the end. So this last one I'll talk about real quick is this is the case that involves, still kind of ongoing a little bit, but most people are in the prosecution phase. That's why I did not name in the case or some of the subject stuff. However, this is like the case that involves cartel members and Chinese mafia. And these are legit high-level organized crime. And it all starts in the most beautiful place you can think of, Sea of Cortez. What's there? What's in the Sea of Cortez? It's a beautiful area, but it's also controlled completely by the cartels. Well, these two critters are there. So the vaquita dolphin, there's probably 5 to 10 of them left in the world. Hopefully our biologists are wrong, and because if they're not, they're basically a living extinct creature you're seeing right there. It's very sad. And they're not even going after the vaquita dolphin, they're going after that Tatwala fish that's there, which is also endangered, but not critically endangered. The vaquita dolphin just happened to get hit in the nets because they're eating fish. They're just a byproduct. They're not even sought after. But because they're just hammering these Tatwala fish, because of their value, which I'll show you in a second, which is crazy, worth more than any drug on the planet, the vaquita dolphin will probably become extinct. I can't go down and stop. I can't stop the cartel from telling the fishermen to fish this. Doesn't matter what we do. If it was in the United States, we could stop this. We can't. We tell Mexico about it. We work with it. It just doesn't matter. It's worth too much money, and they are run by the cartels. So I can't stop this from happening down there. I can get the people that we can prosecute. The people we can get prosecuted. Right. So we can buy and work our way up the chain on this. So that's why I say the price is high, and that's the reason for illegal activities. Well, these are Tatwala bladders. This is the swim bladder from a Tatwala fish. It's about this big, very thin, very light. But look at the value of that. So one of my purchases that I did undercover, one of them we did with our group was 23 swim bladders for $247,000. Now, currently, as we speak, there's probably a truckload of them coming in San Diego. Probably a semi-load, $50 to $100 million worth of Tatwala bladders. All organized, run by the cartel. Because they're doing drugs and human smuggling, they have runners, they have all the stuff. They just plug in wildlife, right? You said there's sea cucumber I'll talk about in a second. You name the wildlife product. They're just plugging it in and making money off it. Because it's the third most money-making thing in the world. They've already got the operation to do it. And you have a small group of us trying to work these cases out. Now, if we just work down the driver, if someone comes across let's say 20 bladders, do you think the prosecutor is going to hit them? The guy's going to say, I don't know what I'm even carrying. I got paid $100, which they do on the other side, for just like drive this truck across the border and meet the guy at the warehouse. Okay, here's $100. And they drive. They have no knowledge. They make no knowledge of it, and most of them never get prosecuted. So a lot of times if you hit those people and take them down, which HSI does and CBP does, you're not doing anything. You're not stopping anything above them. We're not getting to the people that are actually culpable of this. Well, that's where we come in, right? Here's another thing. These people were also selling illegal sea cucumber. There's legal and illegal stuff, making our job even more difficult because you have to prove which version of the sea cucumber is being transported. And so this is a CITES species that's being sold and smuggled in bags like that and hidden and brought across the border every day, all the time in San Diego. So these are people we work in though undercover. It shows you this. I mean, just a normal sale that I would sell to people, probably 10 of these 20 of these per investigation. On the sea cucumber side, it's like 20 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand for just these small shipments. And there's thousands of these things coming along. That's why it's worth so much. That's why what it's worth, right? So how do we get into them again? Well, we befriend them. We had broker service. In this case, we got a broker service. We bought and sold seafood products. And we became good at it. And we knew who to target because of prior bad activities. And then we would go sell to them and talk to them, and they would tell us all their bad activities. So we would get it on, they can't deny it then about knowledge when we're bull crapping about the whole time, right? So that's how we got into these people. We would use different, you could also get someone in trouble and flip them as an informant. There's a whole bunch of ways you can kind of work into it to get access to them. And then when you say, here's product I have or I want product, they're in the business to sell or buy product. So they're going to sell or buy the product. That person that did the $250,000 deal to me, she was a Chinese national. She has like 50 different shell companies in the US. She's working with the cartel members and other Chinese people in Mexico. When I tried to do business with her, she wanted to do $1 million deal minimum. I don't have $1 million. Like we were buying and selling a lot of product, but we had about 300 grand after a couple of years of buying and selling this stuff. We didn't have $1 million. And then she's like, no, then 500,000. And I'm like, listen, I don't know you. I'm not doing business with you until I do something smaller. Like, I don't trust you and all this stuff. Like, I don't have the money. Otherwise I would have done $1 million deal. So we negotiate down to $250,000. That was like, I was like, I'm not doing anything more than that because I don't know you. Fine, I'll do that. Well, we do that deal. They had counter surveillance. They had people watching us, watching our people undercover. We could tell from what we do that they were watching our people that were watching, right? But they didn't know we were still doing it. We do that deal, everything went fine. We set up another deal for $1 million. This time though, we're not giving them $1 million. We're gonna take them down, right? So they're gonna bring all those products and then we're gonna do the deal and then take them down, which we did. It was extremely hard though, because they still had some counter surveillance. They still had people watching us. They moved the venue 3 different times during the thing, like meet here, no meet here, don't meet here. All stuff that cartel that does. We just outflanked them. And by the time it happened, we were able to take them down and take them down and get that last one. They're all getting felonies and getting prosecuted as we speak.
Were you able to get the money back?
The restitution for that money, we were able to get the restitution back for that exact amount. Yeah. So that was good. And then some. Yeah. So business is big, right? There's one of the port entries in San Diego. There's 2 of them. There's just, hundreds of thousands of people come through. All these businesses come through, and they're opening a third border crossing there. And there's only a few of us, right? So then they come from there and they go to these warehouses. As soon as they go in these gated warehouses, it's gone. They got drugs in there, pills in there. We documented pills coming across, which then they would lace with fentanyl later and sell. They had drugs, they had human smuggling going on. You take them to these locations, it's just gone. Unless I'm going in there to buy them, if we did, you don't know what's where, right? So that's how we get into them. Since they've been in, like, so do we. There's goes back to my fish shop. There's our display counter right here. And that is like, so you have to look right, right? So we want to document these people. I don't want to spend time smoking fish. Locally, it's not going to really do me any good. However, if I'm a business, I'm going to sell fish locally. If I don't, I look something strange because you make a lot more money selling smoked fish than you do selling whole fish. So we have to look legitimate. We smoke enough fish, learn how to smoke fish really good, get a good recipe, just smoke enough to get people like look like we're legit. And then, oh, we're out today, right? We're out tomorrow, right? We're out. And that's what you have to do to blend in and get these people, right? Here's the really cool thing, and this is the only one slide left or whatever, is the cool thing about us. So FBI, all these other people, you can buy drugs. You can't sell them without taking someone down. You can even buy human smuggling. You can buy people, but you can't sell humans. You can buy guns. You can't sell guns and let them just go out and get used. The Fish and Wildlife Service, off of law enforcement, we can buy and sell wildlife. I can buy and sell wildlife for 2 years. Now, I wouldn't do that with a vaquita dolphin, right? I'm not going to buy and sell them and make them extinct. But on the trout and other lake species and sea cucumber and twabba, I can buy and sell that stuff all day long. In fact, I've got a big stockpile of a lot of twabba biters in our evidence stuff. Right after the case, we can use that to sell stuff. So that's what we can do that others can't. And a side story on this really quick, in California, they knew this guy had all this drug stuff, big cartel guy. big mansion. They knew 90% of what they needed to get a search warrant for this guy's house. Jewelry, drugs, you name it, there's all this illegal stuff they think is there. They know it's there, but they don't have quite enough PC to get probable cause to get a search warrant. Well, guess what this guy has? A monkey. He's got a pet monkey that he put on his Facebook that I bought this damn thing in Mexico and brought it back to the United States. You can't do it. It's illegal. Fish wild. I don't have anything else. This guy brought a monkey back. He's got it on his shoulder in his house. You think I have probable cause? Did the monkeys at his house? Yeah, I do. So we do a warrant on the monkey. FBI comes with us. We get this house. Where's the monkey, right? We're looking for this monkey. Anything related with the monkey sale, monkey business, right? We're looking for any of that, like the sale of it and everything else. Well, we get in the house and what do you see? Drugs and drugs and jewelry and everything everywhere. So we stop. We're like, whoa, all right, stop right now. FBI goes, says, hey, we're in here lawfully for this other thing here. We see all this crap in here. And they added it to their other probable cause. They're like, here's a warrant. Go serve it. So they serve it and they find all the drugs and all the stuff off of monkey.
Is social media a probable cause to pursue something?
It could be, it depends on how much it is. I mean, it depends on what you have. So if you have them on social media,
Yeah.
at their place, there's their mansion, you can identify it. And you got the monkey on their shoulder, and them saying they got the monkey from Mexico. They've just admitted to buying the monkey in Mexico and they're at their house with it. As long as it's current, you've got PC to probably get that monkey from the house. Now once you're in a place lawfully and you see other stuff, you stop, and get another warrant. If you don't get the warrant, you leave it. They got the warrant, they got this guy off the warrant. So that happens a lot with us. So which is the goal? We want to work our way up to the top, right? So we want to work our way up. It allows us, when you do those buys for 2 years, to find the kingpin, find the top guy, hopefully the cartel guy, right? We take that person down and all these people at once. So that's the good part. And then the last example here, the difference between a ticket, like I mentioned before, there's the fish. There's one of my first buys of fish in the undercover business that I did. State officer there with me. We're documenting all of them are illegal. That same thing right there would be like a couple $100 fine. That's all they would have got. If we just stopped there and said, you did this wrong, a couple $100 fine. They'd be doing it today still. But we documented that and along with all the other stuff for 2 years, 3 years. That same person, the same type of fisherman doing the same stuff, $80,000 fine, home confinement. The wholesaler gets a year in jail, $2.1 million of restitution that knowingly buying this stuff for years. So there's the difference between doing let's quick hit somebody and try to see if it works, or doing a 2-year investigation, 3 years, and then taking everyone down. I kind of just over an hour, like got me to the end here.
Thank you.
And now we have time though for facilitation of questions if you want. Questions, comments, concerns, you got me for a half hour, so.
I'll just open the conversation up. So you were talking about fish, but what other species?
Many to identify, but reptiles, turtles, ginseng, timber, every type of reptile you can imagine, all type of big cats, fish. I mean, I can just go on. If you can name, I mean, all the pet trade. So every single thing you can think of the pet trade, parrots, exotic birds, just name it. And we do ivory, pangolin scales, which are worth ridiculous amounts of money, more than drugs as well. Ivory, which is worth ridiculous amounts of money as well. Yeah, to give you a quick thing on the ivory, so we do a lot of training overseas to our partners in wildlife trafficking courses in Africa. If you ever can go to Africa, I would tell you to go to Africa. It's like especially Botswana, and go to Okavango Delta. It's like a trip of your life. It's not cheap, won't be cheap, but it was like it was 200,000 years ago. You're walking elephants, zebra, like from me to you. There's no fences. Like it was incredible. But we're training people over there on stuff. If we think we have it bad, I'm getting shot at by hillbillies. Those people they lose people every year. 20 of their 8 officers here, they get in gunfights all the time for the trafficking of horns. Or the one guy's like sitting like you are, and he's like, hey, just like I arrested this guy. He was doing all this stuff illegally, but he happened to be connected with my government, and they threw me in jail for 2 years. But that's the officer. And the only reason he got out of jail was because the administration changed. And they let him out of jail and he came in, he's like, and now I'm back as an officer, I'm happy. I'm like, "Phew." I thought I had a bad day last week. You know, this guy spent 2 years in jail for doing a job. Right? So those are go ahead.
Is there a resource page we can refer to for data on the current or fairly current impact on illegal trade in wildlife animals impacting the ecosystem and indigenous species?
That's a good question. There are a lot of agencies or a lot of government agencies, NGOs that actually have better websites kind of put together because they actually do their side businesses doing that. I can't name any offhand that I can think of, but if you looked up wildlife nonprofit organizations, NGOs, there's some world-class ones that all they do is collect data on. You know, we're collecting data on law enforcement and on illegal activities, but we don't necessarily have a page where we're showing the impact of that. Now, those NGOs do a phenomenal job of that. So it's out there. It's just that you have to kind of search for that NGO with that information, you'll find it.
Is there enough bite in those federal sentencing guidelines?
That's a good question. And it's yes and no, but a lot of times no. But with this, here's why it's so important for us to work these bigger cases. And it's because if we can work, so the Lacey Act, the most you can get out of Lacey Act, the most you can get is 5 years in prison. Doesn't matter what you do. So the most you can get out of it's 5 years. Doesn't matter if you're the biggest cartel member doing just wildlife, that's all you did, 5 years. Most you can.
For violation?
For the Lacey Act codified, that's his max for the Lacey Act. Now, the same people that are doing that wildlife crime are also probably money laundering and other things, or smuggling. Smuggling is a 20-year offense. So if we can get them on a Lacey Act and smuggling, we charge them with 1 count each because we can get money back into the Lacey Act reward account, which helps us with our investigations and getting evidence and paying for animal care. But we get them on the 20-year smuggling or the money laundering issues, and we get them on that type of crime in those bigger cases. That's what we're trying to build, case not just for Lacey Act, what are they doing with their illegal proceeds? But the answer is no. Like I give you, what's the maximum fine there is to take the last fuzzy creature whatsoever. If you saw the last vaquita dolphin swimming in the ocean and you went and just stabbed it and took it and killed it on video. The most you can get, taking the last creature on planet is up to 1 year in jail and a $100,000 fine. That's the endangered species limits it as a misdemeanor. That's it. Now, if they took that vaquita dolphin, sold it interstate or imported it, now they've got a Lacey Act felony. Now, if they're doing other money laundering stuff, now we work our way out. The answer is no simply for some, but yes, as if you build the investigation right.
How is your organization's relationship with U.S. attorneys? How are they in prosecuting these cases?
So, and this is another awesome question. And it really, all of them are interested in what we have. However, the bandwidth that they have and the geographic area they're in, based on what their bandwidth is to take crime, you know, our crime is always going to take a second seat in some of those places to murder, rape, and everything else. They're people that you're offending, right? So we get a second seat a lot of times, and that's just because of the way it is. I mean, it's not how I would like it. Now, there are other places where they have people that are dedicated to, like, that is what they believe in, and their U.S. attorney lets them run with it, and they run with it. And so they will find out anything they can and help us whatever way to prosecute them to the maximum extent of the law. And we have some really good relationships. Other ones, it's not that we don't have a good relationship, it's that they don't have the number of attorneys to address our situation.
How about other countries? Are there any particular countries that have better laws or better support for NTV?
Not, so most places don't have us at all. There's not an arm of us. I mean, I go to Africa, I'll tell you, the people that we train are basically like state game wardens. So they have that level of efficiency. Now, there are a few countries, there's in Africa, there's 1 or 2, and I'm trying to think of what the name, I can't remember which one it is, that have incredible wildlife laws. In fact, like but this is only one place, like 1 or 2 that have, like, if you do what I was talking to you about, dude, they'll spend life in prison. They don't mess around. Like in one country. 99% of the other places, though, like in China and everything else, it's just you don't have the enforcement action there, and you don't have people getting charged.
Are there certain kinds of investigations where female agents are especially helpful undercover?
Or that's a good question too. Yes, because guys are really dumb in some ways. Like, sorry, I'm a guy. but it's really easy to infiltrate guys. Like it just is. Like if you have a female investigator or informant, it's actually very, very good asset to have. And we do have some. We don't have as much as we'd like, of course, but we have some really good female agents. And yeah, that's a very good product. It's human culture, right? So it's easier to get in with some people that way by far.
Going back to the legislation for a minute does the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in some way communicate to congressmen or members of Congress or senators in terms of what legislation you would need?
That is, yeah, we have our Washington headquarters, our chief and our group up there are in communication with the congressional, like natural resource committees and those things to let them know how things are and what ways we do, what ways we could maybe tweak the law or help tweak the law of something better. All we can kind of give is some suggestions and say, here's some of the stuff we have, here's our caseload. We're prohibited from asking for money and that kind of stuff. So we just left with the resources we have. And they give you a good example of that, like the Big Cat Safety Act, awesome act that got passed, but no additional funding came with that. So on that big fund, the Big Cat Safety Act says, hey, if you've got a tiger and I come to your house and see a tiger, I'm going to take your tiger. You can't have the tiger, period. You just can't have it. But now I have to incur the cost of housing that tiger and finding a place for it out of my budget. I didn't get any extra budget for that, right? But we still have to do what we're mandated by law. So we will do it. It's just going to cut into our operational expenses, right? And if we did that extensively, we could just, right, you could just go right through your stuff. So we have people up there, they are in communication with them, but politics is politics. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask you, a while back, excuse me, there was a story about the U.S. Wildlife Organization helping rangers kill wolves out west. Do you know about that? It was like a really big story.
Yeah, so we have.
Where it was like kind of egregious, where our federal agency was killing wolves for property interest of these ranchers.
Right. So
Do you know about that?
all I can tell you is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is like this, and the Office of Law Enforcement is like this. So the people that permit that type of activity and deal with that are biologists. There's a permitting process that's a lawful permitting process that actually happens in Michigan and other places too, where if there's depredation things, they go through the permitting process. Someone from the Wildlife Services, if they have a permit, will take whatever it is, if it's permitted to do so. Like that's completely outside of our purview or look, right? If it's done by permit. Now, if it's done not by permit, then now you're causing a violation that we'll investigate. But
Right, you understand though, I mean, I know it's not your section, but it's like using tax dollars for property interest of these ranchers, and then that's, the wolves are endangered species as well, what I mean? So it was kind of egregious.
Yeah, it's just, there's politics behind that, which I'm not in at all. Like I'm catching bad guys or not catch or prove that they didn't do it, right? I've done that as well. But in those cases, you just can't, we don't have any say over it whatsoever, unless it's not permitted. If it's permitted, if someone says it's legal by whatever process or permitting process, it's legal.
You can't speak to the law.
Yeah, and I can't, I can just say, that I hear you.
Right, it's kind of,
I hear you.
yeah.
Do you know if it's illegal to own a wolf in Illinois?
You can't, again, there's the pet trade. So then there's like hybrids and people that are captive raised stuff that are not wild. So if it's not a wild wolf, there are ways where people in certain states that have exotic game laws that allow them to have certain species. Like there's places that have bears and sell bears legally. Like they have, and unfortunately, that was another investigation I had where you've got a mom bear and a dad bear right there in a spot that's, 15 by 15 foot cage, and that's where they live all year. And every spring they take the babies out and they sell them.
And that's legal?
And that's legal in some states. Yeah, if it stays in the state, it's legal. In some states it's not. And the other place, if you sell across the border, then I get involved, which I have in that case. And I go interview them and they're like, yeah, I sold to this guy. And he's like, oh, they were donated to me, right? No, you paid for them. And I find that out, and through the investigation, we charge them, right? But there are places that you can have a wolf or you can have a bear if it's the state allows it in their permitting system.
I believe that's prohibited under the criminal code.
In Illinois?
Dangerous Animals Act.
Yeah.
But he's really speaking more to federal law, so.
Correct, yeah, to the federal, if it's a true wolf, like you can't have the wolf from there. If you're a zoo or other place, you can. But, endangered species, you're not gonna have now. It could be a hybrid. That's where it comes with our lab and everything. If we give you sampling and say, is this thing a true, wolf, gray wolf, or is this a wolf hybrid? And if it's a hybrid, they can have it. So it makes it tricky.
What's something you've experienced in your investigation that has completely blindsided you? Not in a bad way or in a horrendous way, but you experienced it or you wonder, you're like, that was weird.
Wow, I'd have to think about that for a second, because there's so many of that situation where I've had something happen where where I constantly think that I've seen what I've seen the most, or I'm not going to see something crazier, and then I see something crazier, right? Like the people, one of the investigations that we're involved with that's been out there as well is the chimp queen, or the chimp. I don't know if anyone's followed that. It's on one of the I believe she's in Missouri. Well, she had a chimp and she can't have a chimp, and she had this chimp. She hid the chimp. She got the chimp from a different state, so she actually violated laws under us and not further documented. And then she had a film crew with her, trying to document her, and they actually outed her and she got in trouble for it. She's actually in jail right now for perjuring herself in that first one. This was kind of crazy to me because, I mean, you go to this, you find this stuff and you go to this house, and we had, agents recently, they go down into this basement and there's this chimp in this cage, and it is massive. And it's already ripped her ear off before and, and ripped someone's face off. And this is her pet. And so you're like, what are you doing? And then in that documentary, she mentions like, they're more important to me, my son or my husband.
Oh my gosh.
What happened to Jim?
We take it to a sanctuary, and it's going to live in a sanctuary. Luckily on that case, and she's a wildlife trafficker. She just doesn't do chimp stuff. She does everything else. Some of the crazy stuff you see that you're like, they eat this or they're selling this for this. I mean, when I first learned out about the Tatwala bladder price, I was like, huh? What is a Tatwala? First. Secondly, why would you want this bladder, and why is it worth $250,000 for 23 of them? I just get blown away on how the value of some of the stuff, which makes it get exploited and then eventually extinct.
Do you appear, do you or can you appear on anything like a podcast or a YouTube channel to discuss this?
We can with authorization from headquarters and basically what the topic is, and we don't bring up any current investigations, but yeah. I mean, in the past, we've done not the greatest job as an organization because of what we do. Not one that people don't want to give our secrets away, but we're not giving our secrets away. People know that there's people like us out there. They just don't know who we are. If you go down to a fish shop somewhere, you're not going to know if that fish shop, right? And this happens with drug stuff. So we're doing more and more, and we have a new chief right now through the Office of Law Enforcement. And in fact, I was fortunate enough to train him in Michigan, and now he's our chief. An awesome person, Doug All. But we're doing more and more to try to get like this, trying to get our what we do out there. We're going to be doing a documentary coming up. We're going to be trying to do a documentary about the paddlefish case, and about another paddlefish case, and do some type of documentary thing and actually get out what we do and what we did. So on a podcast level, we could, yes, we would just have to get cleared and through headquarters on what it is, and we have to go through the Department of Interior, get cleared on the media side of things. Like we did with the documentary, and then we can do them. Yeah, most definitely.
Do the live animals that you rescue, do they all go to the sanctuary? Is that kind of a mandate or not necessarily?
It depends on the species and what it is. I mean, you've got, if you've got monkeys or certain things that come in, they've got human hazards that go along with that, right? If you had bat species that came in that have a high vector of disease and zoonotic issues, they can't go anywhere. Sometimes they have to be, a lot of times, unfortunately, animals have to be put down or taken care of because of the threat they might have to other animals or native species here. And it's all done off the wildlife trafficking's back. So that stuff, that heinous stuff that has to happen to that critter really was a result of someone else bringing it here in the first place. And we can't take it back there because it could disease there. We can't put it in our natural resources. I was talking before offline about turtles that we've had. We get turtles all the time. Well, they have a lot of disease issues with them, and we can't put them in the zoo with the rest of the turtles. We can't put them in back into nature because it could kill those turtles in those areas. So they basically either have to live out their life somewhere that someone might take care of them, never get seen, or they have to be euthanized. And it's all based on this wildlife trafficking. You know, we can't place everything. I wish we could. And things like monkeys and certain things, endangered species, we're going to place somehow, right? We're going to find a place for them. And we usually do on the bigger issue, bigger items. But unfortunately, it led to kind of another side thing I can bring up really quick is that hopefully we can kind of get some partnerships with some of the zoos. I saw, I think San Francisco Zoo had a wildlife trafficking spot exhibit. And I would like to help promote that to try to get some of these bigger zoos like the Lincoln Zoo and these other zoos in Ohio, like the Columbus Zoo or maybe San Diego, but they would probably need funding from somewhere, right? But to have an area, because they can't have them with the regular area, where they have areas of wildlife trafficked animals that they can have on display, educate the people of, you know, at least they could be used in that capability and have a good life and be fed. You know, so there might be some opportunity they can do that and display all the stuff I'm talking about there to get awareness of how crazy this stuff is.
What do you think the biggest deterrent would be to wildlife smuggling?
I mean, frankly, it's trying to get the news out of, you know, there's some really bad things that happen with some of the stuff. I know we mentioned it before about some horrible stuff they do with animals. It's, you know, on some of the videos they do overseas, and then people buy them and transform. If people knew what these crimes were and they did stories on them more, and we did more documentaries, I think that's a deterrent. The other part is if we have some really good, better crime laws, right? And the hard part is getting people to understand that that's worth something, because some people don't even think it should be a felony, right? So it's hard to get that path. This is like an animal, right? And they're like, this is a person. And so if this animal's getting killed, that's not a felony. You don't put someone away for 5 years for that. Well, on some of the stuff I showed you, yeah, because otherwise, you know, they're making millions of dollars off the back of these critters, and then vaquita dolphin or something else. And I could give 1,000 stories of these animals that are exploited like that, and will eventually go extinct because of their value. So tougher crime, you know, tougher penalties would be good. More public, I don't want to say humiliation, but acknowledgement that, hey, look what these people did and what they got. So then there might be a bigger deterrent on them.
Are there any organizations, whether mainstream or whatever, that you have found done really well at spreading the word, telling these stories, letting people know that we could possibly follow to learn more about?
Sure. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service website, and especially Office of Law Enforcement, we have, if they go online, they can kind of follow some of the stories that happen and some of the things that our current cases that we've gotten through. And they'll have stories about those things that happen. So it's not just one. There's people all over will pick up and go, oh, that's really cool. That's something that happened here, right? Like McCormick Place with all the birds hit. Everyone knows about that. We were involved with helping mitigate that situation and work with them. But you get those type of stories, someone picks up on it and then they hit it, and then maybe you'll get a second story. So it's all over the board. You get a lot of interest on wildlife cases. Here's another thing. If you go to trial on a wildlife case, the jurors are like, they're all in. Like, so you get jurors that are like, I guess the third, you know, like the grand jury's heard the third drug case or whatever, right? And they're like, and then you're like, yeah, we got this stuff here where someone was smuggling all these endangered turtles in, or they're like, huh? They're like, well, they focus in, or they did all this crazy stuff to this wildlife and killed all this, and people are like, what we're gonna keep, like they need to go to town, right? So you get a lot of jury interest in it whenever they get there. A lot of times we do the case, fortunately, well enough where they plead. You know, it doesn't get to that. But if it gets to the jury and then the public gets there and they cover it and everything else, then yeah, juries love it. We should.
What can the public, we've got a lot of people online who are watching you. What can the public do to support your efforts?
I mean, if they talk with their, you know, the representatives and their congressmen and women to say that, you know, they support what we do. I mean, those things can help us always, you know, in the long run. Like I mentioned, we can't specifically ask for certain things. I mean, but if, like you can see that through the numbers, we have 200 agents, and out of those, you probably have 100 and some that are actually working out in the field, because we have admins and, you know, my level stuff, even though I still work out in the field from time to time, you know, we don't have enough people and personnel, but it's just what we're kind of trapped with, right? Or to get the word out, or if we have places that are kind of working with the zoos on our, you know, to say, hey, here's some places we might be able to store some wildlife. One of our biggest things we have, and there are places that are working on it, but is we house the tiger I took from your house or whatever, right? But we got to now house it and feed it. So there's places that have come together and said, okay, if it happens here, bring the tiger here, or bring the monkey here, or bring the, the chimpanzee here. So those are the things we need more of because, the less stuff we have to euthanize or the less stuff that comes out of our budget, the more stuff we can do on the field, more work we can do on the field, right? So partnerships, anytime we love to work with NGOs on different things. I
Ask one final question, then we can wrap up. Does your team or another investigate animal sacrifices or animal pornography?
So. Yeah, no, I kind of hinted on this question a minute ago because we talked about it offline. There's animal crushing that goes on. It's called animal crushing videos, and it's sick. And we are investigating them currently. We have done recent ones, and we work with our counterparts with FBI and HSI to run these because it's not a Lacey Act crime unless, again, they're bringing it here to torture or they're selling it interstate or importing and exporting it. But those videos, there are a lot of them produced overseas. And they're very sick videos. If anyone looked into animal crushing, what it is, don't look into it. But it is torture of animals and people paying money to get those videos. And we hold that, those people have gotten the harshest of criminal penalties that I've seen out of any stuff they go to jail for many years.
I remember it being big a few years ago. Is it still going on?
It's still going on. And we're still investigating as of even today. New stuff comes up every time. It's sick. But we are dealing with it and they are getting help because they don't get to plead onto a lower crime. They plead in felonies. There is no trial. They don't go to trial because, go to trial, see how that works for you when people hear about this and send news crews in. They don't want anything to do with it. Unfortunately, our agents and investigators have to watch that stuff to document what's the illegal stuff and what's the not illegal stuff that'll be prosecutable in court. But we're there. So we'll keep it up. We'll keep the fight going. Like I said, as of today, we just opened up another one. So
I think that is a good place to end it. Thank you so much.